Husband and whole family kicked, wife out for being barren, unaware she was a secret billionaire daughter. He didn't just betray her, he watched in silence as his entire family threw her out into the night. That evening, the Miller house glowed with warm light and cruel words. Margaret Miller's voice rang through the living room, sharp as glass. "You've cursed this family, Emma. 5 years and no child, what good are you as a wife?" Emma stood near the doorway, clutching her small suitcase, tears silently streaking her face. Her husband Daniel stood by the staircase, arms crossed, saying nothing. The man she had loved, defended, and built her life around couldn't even meet her eyes. She whispered, "I loved you all as my own." Daniel's reply cut through her heart like ice. "Love doesn't build a family, Emma. A child does." He handed her divorce papers, papers at the ready, his mother's approval glowing behind him like a curse. And then, without a single glance back, he turned away toward a woman named Ava, toward a future he believed was better. To them, Emma was nothing, a barren wife, a failure, a burden to be erased. But what none of them knew was that the woman they threw out that night carried a truth powerful enough to destroy every lie they had built. Because beneath her silence, behind that small wooden box she guarded under her bed, lay her real name, Emma West, heiress to the multi-billion-dollar empire that kept their businesses alive. And the man who threw her out of his house had built his entire life on her money. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's about a woman who lost everything and remembered she was born with more than they could ever take. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, you silence Emma's voice all over again. Click that button to stand with every woman cast aside, every soul who chose power over pain. Tell me in the comments where are you watching from tonight? The scent of burning toast snapped through the quiet morning. Emma Miller flinched, rushing to the kitchen stove, her hands trembling slightly as she turned off the gas. She was 28, graceful in movement but visibly tired, her eyes carrying the soft weight of someone who gave too much of herself to keep a house peaceful. The clock read 5:42 a.m. She was already behind. From the living room, the low buzz of a phone screen glowed across Daniel Miller's face. 32, tall, clean-cut, and once charming, now mostly distant. He sat slouched on the couch, scrolling through his phone, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. He didn't notice Emma watching him, or maybe he didn't care. "Breakfast will be ready in 5, Emma said softly, trying to sound cheerful. Daniel didn't look up. "Yeah, just don't burn it this time." His voice wasn't cruel, but it was cold, the kind of tone that leaves bruises you can't point to. Before 2, she became Emma Miller. She was Emma West, daughter of Eleanor West, CEO of West Group Holdings, one of the wealthiest families in the country. Their family estate had marble floors, private chefs, and an empire of companies built by ruthless intelligence. Emma grew up surrounded by luxury, yet she often sat by her window, watching ordinary people walk by and laugh freely, something money never gave her. At 21, she met Daniel at a university charity event. He wasn't rich. He was a scholarship student, ambitious and bright. He talked about building a simple, honest life, and Emma fell for him instantly. For the first time, someone looked at her not as an heir, but as a woman. Against her mother's warning, she left everything, her inheritance, her family name, even her identity, to legally marry him as Emma Miller. She used her vast resources one last time to create a new, clean identity, telling Daniel it was a small inheritance from a distant relative. She wanted to be loved for Emma, not for West. Her father died a year later. The will left her half of West Group held quietly in a private trust. Only one person knew, Mr. Jacobs, the family's lifelong legal advisor. Before she left, Jacobs had insisted she keep one secret, emergency-only contact number, and the legal papers to her trust. Those papers stayed locked inside a small wooden box she kept under her bed unopened since the day she left home. Emma plated breakfast with care, eggs, toast, a touch of butter. Her mother-in-law, Margaret Miller, a sharp-eyed woman in her late 50s, entered with the authority of someone who believed the house was hers alone. She was kind to outsiders, but to Emma, she spoke with a constant undertone of judgment. "You're up late again, Emma," Margaret said, glancing at the slightly burnt toast. "A good wife keeps her home spotless and gives her husband children. You're halfway there. Emma froze for a second. The knife in her hand hovering over the butter dish, she smiled politely. I'll do better tomorrow. Daniel chuckled under his breath, still scrolling. You've been saying that for years. It was meant as a joke, but it wasn't one. The words landed heavy. Emma lowered her eyes, hiding the flicker of pain that almost surfaced. She carried the plates to the table, every step steady as a soldier walking through emotional landmines. After everyone ate, Emma stood by the window, watching sunlight slide across the kitchen floor. She could hear Margaret humming softly, Daniel tapping away at his phone, the clinking of dishes. It was an ordinary morning, painfully ordinary. Her mind wandered to her old life, the grand breakfasts with her father, where she used to sit beside him reading stock reports while he quoted philosophy. Control your silence, he once said, and you control the world. She smiled sadly. She had mastered silence, but lost her world. Was this the life? And she traded everything for? Still, she believed in love. She believed that patience could heal distance, that kindness could melt coldness. She told herself Daniel was just stressed that one day they'd laugh again like they used to. She whispered small prayers no one heard. Later that morning, as she was making the bed, Daniel walked in. His tie was loose, his cologne sharp. You should clean under the bed sometime, he said casually. You keep too much junk. Emma froze. Her eyes flicked to the small wooden box, half hidden beneath the frame, the one that held her secret. Daniel bent down, his hand brushing the edge of the box. What's this? Her heart leaped. Just old letters, she said quickly, stepping forward, her hand covering his. He smirked, unconvinced but uninterested. Don't start hiding things from me, Em. Secrets ruin families. As he left the room, she exhaled slowly, pulling the box closer, clutching it protectively against her chest. For a moment, she thought she heard her mother's voice in her head, soft, warning, almost whispering through time. The people who judge you today will one day kneel to the truth you've hidden. Emma placed the box back under the bed, locking it again, unaware that Daniel's eyes had briefly flicked back, curious, calculating. He smiled faintly before leaving for work. And for the first time, Emma felt a small chill she couldn't explain, as if the air itself was warning her. She didn't know that by tomorrow morning, whispers would start whispers that would turn her love into a weapon. The slam of the kitchen door shattered the morning calm. A glass rolled off the counter and broke into pieces, scattering like small diamonds across the tile. Emma jumped, her hands still wet from washing dishes. Margaret Miller, her mother-in-law, stood near the pantry, face flushed, voice rising. This family is falling apart, Margaret hissed, gripping the pantry edge of the counter. Daniel's business is dropping, he's stressed, and that girl, she pointed sharply toward the dining room, still hasn't given us a grandchild after 5 years of marriage. At the table sat Sophie Miller, Daniel's younger sister, 25, pretty and spoiled by comfort. She sipped her orange juice and whispered back, maybe she's the reason nothing's working out. Some women just bring bad luck. Emma froze behind the half-closed kitchen door, their words slicing through her like cold wind. She wanted to step in, to defend herself, but her voice caught in her throat. She wiped her hands quietly, pretending she hadn't heard. She moved around the kitchen, gathering broken glass, her movements slow and careful. Her mother's voice from long ago echoed softly in her mind. Silence doesn't mean weakness, Emma. It's how we watch people reveal themselves. Her mother, Eleanor West, had taught her that in a world of power and cruelty, patience was sharper than any weapon. Eleanor believed in timing, let them speak. Words have a way of building their own traps. Emma straightened her back, forcing her breath steady. She didn't want to cry, not here, not where they could see. Daniel walked in just then, dressed in a crisp white shirt, tie loose around his neck. What's going on? He asked, frowning at the tension. Margaret crossed her arms. Ask your wife. Maybe she can explain why everything in this house feels cursed. Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. Mom, not now. Please. He turned to Emma briefly, his tone softer but detached. Ignore it, okay? She's just worried about me. That one sentence, worried about me, said everything. He wasn't standing with her. He was standing away from her. Emma nodded quietly. I understand, Sophie smirked from the corner. You always do. As the family left the kitchen, Emma stayed behind, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. For a moment she closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "You chose this. You chose love over comfort." She thought about her old life, marble halls, private dinners, her father's booming laugh as he talked about mergers and expansion. She used to think wealth made people cold. Now she realized poverty could be colder. The Miller family had no empire, no power, just pride, the kind that needed someone to blame. And Emma was the easiest target. She carried breakfast plates to the sink, her gaze lowering to Daniel's phone left charging on the counter. The screen lit up Ava calling. Her breath hitched. The name was unfamiliar, the emoji intimate. Her heart started to race, but her face didn't change. She simply stared, frozen, watching the phone buzz once, twice, 3 times before going silent. The sound of the vibration echoed in her chest long after it stopped. She didn't touch it, she didn't say a word. But her mind began, spinning quietly, connecting the small, strange moments she'd ignored. Daniel working late, new shirts she hadn't bought, the faint trace of perfume she didn't wear. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe Ava was just a coworker. Maybe. But the maybe already burned. Later that afternoon, she stood by the kitchen window, watching Daniel drive away. His car disappeared down the road. Margaret and Sophie's laughter echoed faintly from the living room, sharp, dismissive, unkind. Emma leaned against the wall, her eyes falling on the wedding photo, hanging above the dining table, her smile bright, his arm around her. That photo had always felt safe. Now it looked like evidence of a lie slowly unraveling. She whispered softly, "You said secrets ruin families, Daniel. I wonder whose secret will." The sunlight shifted, landing on the edge of the counter on Daniel's phone, left behind. The screen glowed faintly again as a message appeared. Emma's eyes caught one line, before it faded. "Can't wait to see you tonight, Ava." Her fingers tightened around the dish towel, heart pounding, yet her expression stayed calm, eerily calm. She turned off the kitchen light and walked upstairs without a word. By the next morning, those whispers wouldn't just be words, they'd become the match that set her marriage on fire. The clang of silverware hitting the plate snapped the table into silence. Daniel's father, George Miller, 60, stern-faced and proud, set his fork down and cleared his throat. "This family needs a child," he said firmly, his tone slicing through the quiet. "A name must continue, Daniel. 5 years of marriage, and still nothing?" Emma's hand froze midair, the spoon trembling slightly. Across from her, Daniel's eyes flicked up, blank but sharp, as if silently warning her not to speak. Margaret leaned forward, voice smooth but venomous. "Maybe it's time Emma got a checkup again. Sometimes, women have hidden problems." The words landed like a slap. Emma forced a gentle smile, the kind that hides pain too deep to show. "I've been checked," she said softly. Sophie smirked. "Doctors can be wrong, you know." George nodded, taking another sip of water. "Then get a second opinion. Or maybe Daniel should consider." He paused deliberately, letting his gaze drift toward his son. "Other options, before it's too late." Daniel's fork scraped against the plate, his jaw tightening. "Dad, please." But the seed was already planted. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. As the family continued eating, Emma's mind drifted to a memory, a flashback from months ago. White walls, the quiet hum of a clinic, a doctor, middle-aged and kind, smiling gently as he looked over the results. "You're completely healthy, Mrs. Miller. There's no issue with you at all." He hesitated before adding softly, "Sometimes it's the husband who should also get tested." Emma had smiled politely back then, holding her purse tightly in her lap. "He's been busy," she had said, even though she knew that wasn't the reason. That day, she walked out of the clinic knowing one thing with crystal clarity. The problem wasn't her, but she never said it. She knew Daniel's pride was fragile, and his family's pressure was immense. Telling them the truth would humiliate him, and she loved him too much for that. Her silence had always been her shield and her curse. Back at the dinner table, Margaret's tone softened, pretending to be sympathetic. "Emma, darling, I'm sure you're doing your best, but a wife's duty is to give her husband heirs. We only want what's best for both of you." Emma's throat tightened. "I understand, Mother." Daniel spoke suddenly, too loudly. "Enough! This isn't dinner talk." George looked unimpressed. Then handle it, son. We won't live forever to see this family name vanish. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel stabbed at his food, not meeting Emma's eyes. She sat there, motionless, watching her husband fold under his family's weight and turn that frustration inward toward her. A subtle shift had begun. Daniel used to defend her. Now, he just let things happen. She excused herself from the table quietly. I'll bring dessert. As she stepped into the kitchen, she leaned against the counter, gripping the edge hard. Her chest rose and fell with the effort to stay composed. She had done every test, every prayer, every hope. Still, it was never enough. Her mother's old words whispered back, they'll blame what they don't understand. Don't fight them, make them show their truth first. Emma straightened, wiped her tears, and forced a smile before carrying dessert back to the table. When she returned, Daniel was laughing. The kind of hollow, forced laugh that didn't reach his eyes. George asked lightly, you did your test. 2, right, Daniel? The room went silent. Emma's hand trembled, but she kept her face calm. Daniel smiled too quickly. Of course I did. Everything's fine. His tone was smooth. Practiced, but Emma saw it. The faint twitch in his jaw. The way his fingers gripped the glass too tightly. Her heart sank. He was lying. She knew it the same way she knew his phone buzzed at odd hours, and his eyes no longer softened when he looked at her. The first crack wasn't in their marriage, it was in the illusion she'd built around it. That night, after everyone went to bed, Emma sat by the window alone. The moonlight brushed against her face as she stared into the quiet street. Her reflection in the glass looked like a stranger, patient, calm, and breaking silently. She whispered to herself, truth doesn't hide forever. Downstairs, in the faint glow of the living room, Daniel's phone buzzed again unseen. The screen lit up with a name, Ava, and this time, the message read, miss you already. Same place tomorrow? Emma turned from the window as if she'd felt something shift in the air. A faint instinct, the kind that comes before a storm. Foreshadowing line. By the next sunrise, love would no longer sound like devotion, it would sound like betrayal. The elevator doors slid open with a metallic chime. Emma stepped out, clutching a small lunch bag, her heels echoing across the marble floor of Miller & Co. Interiors, Daniel's company, which she had funded with her dowry, believing it was his dream. She decided to surprise him. After the painful dinner the night before, she wanted to remind him that love still existed between them. But as she reached his office door, laughter floated out, soft, flirtatious, unfamiliar. She froze. Through the half-open blinds, she saw Daniel leaning back in his chair, smiling in a way he hadn't smiled at her in months. Sitting on his desk was a young woman, tall, stylish, her legs crossed, wearing Daniel's suit jacket like it belonged to her. The woman twirled Daniel's pen between her fingers and said, laughing, you really shouldn't keep your wife waiting so long for attention. Daniel chuckled. Let's not talk about her. The room tilted for Emma. Her breath caught. She tried to step back, but her bag slipped from her hand, hitting the floor with a dull thud. The laughter stopped. Daniel turned sharply, eyes widening. Emma? Emma bent to pick up the bag, her hands shaking. I brought you lunch, she whispered. Daniel cleared his throat, standing quickly. You didn't have to. The woman smiled politely, as if enjoying the scene. Oh, so you're Emma. Daniel told me so much about you. Emma forced a faint smile. And you are? Ava Cole, she said smoothly, extending her hand. I'm the PR manager he hired to try and land the West Group account. Emma didn't take her hand. Her gaze fell on the desk. A second coffee cup beside Daniel's, lipstick mark faintly visible. Everything clicked. The late nights, the new cologne, the coldness, the lies. The business dropping wasn't just stress. It was this. But Emma didn't cry. She simply nodded, her voice calm, too calm. I see. Then I won't interrupt your work. She turned to leave. As she walked out, Ava's business card slipped from the desk and fluttered to the floor. Emma picked it up automatically and froze. Printed below Ava's name were the words, West Group PR Division, her mother's company, her world, her past. Daniel, in his blind ambition, was trying to do business with the very empire she owned, using his mistress who worked there as an in. The universe had just connected the dots she'd tried to hide. She slipped the card into her purse, her expression unreadable. Outside the building, she looked up at the sky and whispered, "Maybe fate isn't done with me yet." By the next evening, that card would no longer be a secret, it would be a weapon. The shouting started before the lights even came on. "Enough is enough, Emma," Margaret's voice thundered from the living room. The sound jolted through the house like thunder. Emma stood at the top of the stairs, clutching the wooden box to her chest. She'd been staring at it all evening, the sight of Ava's business card burning in her pocket. Downstairs, Daniel's parents stood together, rigid, furious. Daniel was there too, silent, leaning against the wall, his face unreadable. "What's happening?" Emma asked carefully, stepping down each stair, her heartbeat quick and heavy. Margaret's eyes were sharp, gleaming with accusation. "Don't you play innocent, girl? Do you think we don't know? You've brought nothing but bad luck into this house. You've cursed our family with your barrenness and your lies." Emma blinked, her lips parting in shock. "What are you talking about? Lies?" George stepped forward, waving a sheet of paper printed gossip from a local community blog. "People are talking, Emma. Everyone knows his business is sinking and that Daniel still has no heir. You're making us a joke." Emma's voice trembled. "You think this is my fault? Because I can't." "Can't?" Margaret interrupted, her tone slicing through the air. "You won't. You're selfish. You've ruined our son's future." Her hands shook. "You know that's not true. I've done everything I could." Daniel looked away, his jaw tight. "Mom, please." But Margaret cut him off. "You stay out of this. If you had been a real man, you'd have fixed this by now." The room fell into cold silence. Emma turned to Daniel, eyes wide. "Say something. Please." He exhaled slowly, his voice calm but distant. "What do you want me to say, Emma? They're not wrong." Emma felt something in her chest collapse, a quiet, invisible shatter. "I left everything for you," she whispered. "My family, my name, my home. I believed in you." Daniel's eyes flicked to hers briefly, soft for a second, then hard again. "You believed in a dream. But love doesn't build a family, Emma. A child does." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Her breath caught. "What's that?" "Divorce papers." She froze, staring at the envelope like it was a loaded weapon. "You already had them prepared?" she whispered, disbelief breaking into her voice. Daniel nodded, his face still emotionless. "I've been thinking about this for months. I didn't want to do it this way, but you gave me no choice." Emma's voice broke. "No choice? I gave you everything I had. You gave me emptiness," he said quietly. "I need someone who can give me the future I want." Ava's name didn't have to be spoken. It hung there between them, poisonous and understood. Margaret snatched the envelope from Daniel's hand and threw it onto the coffee table. "Sign it and leave," she said coldly. "This house is in my son's name. You don't belong in this house anymore." Emma stared at the papers, the ink on them blurring through her tears. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she lifted her head, her voice trembling but still strong. "I loved you all as my own," she said softly. "Even when you treated me like a stranger." George scoffed. "Save your pity. You were never one of us." The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the heavy silence. Emma looked at Daniel one last time. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." He met her gaze cold, final. "Maybe, but at least it'll be my choice." She walked past him slowly, the sound of her steps echoing like heartbreak itself. Upstairs, she packed her suitcase in silence. Each item she folded felt like burying a memory. Their first date dress, their wedding photo. The scarf he once said made her look like a sunrise. Her hands paused on the small wooden box. She took it out, tucking it safely inside the suitcase. The last piece of her real self, her past, her power. When she came down, suitcase in hand, the whole family stood watching like she was an intruder leaving their kingdom. Sophie leaned against the doorway, smirking. "You'll come crawling back someday, Emma. People like you always do." Emma stopped at the door, turned slowly, her tear-streaked face now calm, almost eerily calm. "No," she said softly. "You'll be the ones crawling." As Emma stepped out of the house that night, the cold air hit her face like reality itself. The front door slammed behind her, but for a moment, she didn't move. The echo of Daniel's voice still lingered sharp, final. "You should have given me a child, Emma. Maybe then, I'd still love you. The words sliced through her like a blade. She turned once, hoping, just hoping he would open the door, call her name, ask her to stay. For years he'd been her home, her reason to believe that love could exist outside wealth and bloodlines. And suddenly, she remembered a softer time their first year of marriage. Rain tapping on the window, Daniel asleep on the couch after a long day, her head resting on his chest. He had smiled in his sleep and mumbled, "You're my peace, Em." She had believed it, with all her heart. Now, standing in the same driveway where he once kissed her under falling snow, she was nothing but a shadow. The porch light flickered once before going out completely, as if even the house had chosen its side. Her knees weakened, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I gave you everything," she whispered into the night. "Even the parts of me that didn't survive you." Then through her tears she clutched the handle of her suitcase, the wooden box safe inside. Her father's name was carved faintly on the lid. That was the moment her heart broke. But her fire was born. Because even as she walked away from the house that had rejected her, a voice inside whispered her father's words. "When they forget your worth, my girl, that's when you remember who you are." The wind caught her hair as she stood on the sidewalk, alone. She looked back at the house her money had bought, but his name had stolen. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, old, non-smartphone. She turned it on for the first time in 5 years and dialed the only number she had memorized. "Mr. Jacobs," she whispered, her voice shaking but cold. "It's Emma. He did it. He threw me out." There was a pause, and then a calm, steady voice replied, "I've been waiting for this call, Miss West. Stay where you are. A car will be at your location in 5 minutes." By the time the sun rose again, the woman they threw out would no longer exist, but the air they betrayed would. The sound of rain hitting the floor-to-ceiling penthouse window was deafening. Emma sat on a plush sofa in a sprawling, dimly lit apartment, a West Group corporate safe house. Her suitcase sat half open beside her, clothes spilling out like remnants of another life. Mr. Jacobs had brought her here directly. Her hands, no longer trembling, rested on the small wooden box. The same box Daniel had once mocked, the same one that carried the part of her she'd buried for love. She set it down on the mahogany coffee table. Her eyes burned, not from tears, she had no more of those left, but from something deeper, resolve. Her fingers fumbled with the old lock. It took 3 tries before it finally clicked open. The sound was sharp and final, like a chapter closing. Inside lay her truth, a birth certificate, Emma West. A thick folder of West Group shared documents, and a faded black and white photo, a young girl laughing beside a tall man in a suit. Her father, Richard West, the billionaire industrialist who had built an empire with his own hands and raised her with iron principles and soft words. She picked up the photo, her thumb brushing across her father's face. Suddenly, memory poured through her like light. A flashback. A grand dining room bathed in morning sun. A younger Emma stood beside her father, arguing. "I don't want this life, Dad. I want something real, love that isn't about money." "Love without truth will still destroy you," Richard said gently. "I don't care. I need to try." He sighed, eyes sad but proud. "Then go, my girl. But when they hurt you," he placed his hand over her heart. "Remember who you are." The memory faded, leaving her breathless. She looked at the papers again, the weight of her name staring back at her West. The family Daniel's mistress worked for, the empire Daniel unknowingly despised, her inheritance, her bloodline, her power. She had left it all behind for love. Now it was time to take it back. She gathered the documents, laying them neatly on the table. Her movements were calm, deliberate, the same way her father used to move when making billion-dollar decisions. Mr. Jacobs, who had been waiting patiently by the door, stepped forward. "Miss West?" She looked up, and the patient, tired Emma Miller was gone. In her place was someone else. "Mr. Jacobs," she said, her voice steady and cold, "I want you to find out everything. How my dowry was spent, who this Ava Cole is, and how fast we can liquidate Miller & Co. Interiors." A pause, then his voice, surprised and warm. "It's good to have you back, Miss West." She glanced at the photo of her father. Her eyes hardened. "It's time," she said quietly. "I want everything back." Silence filled the room, heavy, Final, powerful. The rain outside eased to a drizzle. Emma stood, pulling her hair into a neat bun, her posture straightening as if she were putting on invisible armor. The girl who once ran from her, last, the name was gone. In her place stood Emma West, the heir, the daughter, the woman who would rebuild what they tried to break. By morning, the world that had thrown her away would learn her name and tremble when they heard it again. The sound of paper hitting the table echoed like a gunshot. $200,000, Mr. Jacob said flatly. Transferred from your dowry account over the last 6 months. Emma didn't flinch. She sat in the glass-walled office of West Legal Associates, her posture poised, her expression unreadable. Outside, the city lights shimmered like silent witnesses. Where did it go? She asked, her voice cool. Jacobs adjusted his glasses and slid a document toward her. He used your dowry fund as startup capital for his company. But the company is failing because he's been siphoning the money. He used it to set up a new private PR firm for his mistress, Ava Cole. He literally stole from you to build her a company. Emma leaned back, crossing her arms. So he wasn't just having an affair, he was funding it with my money. Every cent, Jacobs confirmed. He probably assumed you'd never check. After all, his lips curved faintly. You were supposed to be the naive wife, weren't you? Emma's eyes lifted to meet his. Not anymore. For years, she had stayed quiet. She believed love was patience, that silence could heal a man's pride. But sitting there now, watching her husband's betrayal laid out in black ink, she realized silence had only protected him, never her. Jacobs watched her carefully. He was in his 50s, calm and loyal, the same man who had once stood beside her father during board meetings. To him, she wasn't just a client. She was the last piece of the West legacy. Miss West, he said slowly, are you sure you want to do this publicly? Once we act, there's no turning back. Emma's gaze was steel. He made my love a lie. I'll make his. Lies the truth everyone sees. Jacobs nodded, a spark of pride in his eyes. Then we'll begin quietly. I've already assigned an investigator, someone discreet. The door opened, and a woman stepped in, tall, confident, mid-30s, with sharp eyes and a calm presence. Emma, meet Clara Hayes, private investigator, Jacobs said. Clara offered a hand. I've worked on corporate and domestic cases for the West family before. I'll get you what you need. Emma shook her hand firmly. I don't want pity, I want facts. The next days unfolded like a chess match. Clara tailed Daniel's movements, gathering photographs, call logs, and hotel receipts. Every night, she reported back to Emma, who listened silently, her face calm but her hands clenched. Through hidden recordings and financial traces, they discovered more than an affair. They uncovered systematic theft. Daniel had been siphoning Emma's dowry money into Ava's new firm, Ava Cole PR, disguising it as marketing expenses for his own failing company. The audacity almost made her laugh. He really thought I'd never see this, she murmured one night, scanning a printout. Clara raised an eyebrow. Men like him never imagine the woman they underestimate could destroy them. Emma looked up, her voice quiet but sharp. He will. Jacobs assembled a thick folder of evidence, photos of Daniel and Ava together, bank transfers, corporate emails. Everything's ready, he said, closing the file with a snap. We can file the fraud report and serve the divorce papers simultaneously. Emma stood by the window, watching raindrops slide down the glass. Her reflection looked different now, no longer the fragile wife, but the heir her father raised. When do we do it? She asked. Jacobs exchanged a look with Clara, then smiled faintly. I think the timing should be poetic. Emma turned, curious. What do you mean? Jacobs opened his lawn calendar and read aloud. Daniel Miller's new engagement announcement 2 days from now, at the Grandview Hotel. Her lips curved the smallest hint of a smile, dangerous and calm. Perfect. She picked up the folder, closing it against her chest. He wanted a public future. I'll give him one, just not the kind he expects. As she walked out of the office, her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor, each step echoing like the countdown to justice. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly, distant but certain, a storm approaching. Foreshadowing line. By the time Daniel stood beneath the lights at his engagement, the papers he feared most would already have his name on them. The gavel struck the desk with a sharp crack. Case number 4000, 721 Miller versus Miller. The packed courtroom fell into silence. Journalists whispered at the back, their pens poised. Every seat was filled lawyers, onlookers, Daniel's smug parents and Ava Cole. Sitting elegantly beside him in a pale cream suit, Daniel adjusted his tie, his confidence glowing. Finally, he muttered to Ava, smirking. She'll sign, and I'll be free. Ava smiled back, slipping her hand into his. You'll be headline news by noon. The man who left a barren wife for true love. The words made Daniel's grin widen. But as the side door opened, the air in the room shifted. Emma walked in. She wasn't the broken woman he had thrown out. She moved with quiet power, dressed in a black tailored suit, her hair pinned neatly, her posture unshaken. Every step echoed confidence. Daniel's smirk faltered. Margaret gasped. Emma? She whispered. What is she wearing? Who does she think she is? Emma ignored them all. She took her seat beside her lawyer, Mr. Jacobs. Good morning, Mrs. Miller, the judge said. Are you representing yourself? Jacobs rose before she could answer. No, Your Honor. My client, Mrs. Emma West Miller, is represented by West Legal Associates. The name hung in the air like thunder. Daniel frowned, confused. West? Jacobs continued smoothly, handing a file to the clerk. Mrs. Miller, or rather Miss West, is the sole heir and majority shareholder of West Group Holdings. We will be filing under her legal birth name. A ripple of gasps spread across the room. Margaret covered her mouth. West Group? The billionaires? Ava blinked rapidly, whispering, That's impossible. Daniel's entire face drained of color. What did you just say? Jacobs didn't even glance at him. Your Honor, we are petitioning for divorce on the grounds of adultery and gross financial misconduct. We have proof of Mr. Miller's infidelity and proof that he misappropriated over $200,000 of my client's funds to establish a private company for his mistress. Daniel shot up, slamming his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. She's lying. Emma turned her head, slowly toward him, calm, expressionless. Lying, Daniel? Like when you told everyone I was the reason we couldn't have children? Or when you lied about getting tested? When we both know the doctor said I was fine? A few people gasped. The judge raised an eyebrow. Order in the court, Jacobs continued, voice steady. Here is the proof of the transfers. Bank records, digital authorization, and the business registration for Ava Cole PR, all funded by my client's dowry account. He placed the documents in front of the judge. The silence was crushing. Ava shifted uncomfortably. Daniel, what is this? She whispered. He stared at her, speechless. Sweat dotted his forehead. Emma's gaze remained fixed on him. You thought I was weak. You thought you could take everything and walk away. But you were stealing from a company you didn't even know I owned. The judge cleared his throat. Given the overwhelming evidence, the court recognizes Mrs. West Miller's petition. Divorce is granted in her favor. A full freeze is placed on all assets related to Miller & Co. and Ava Cole PR pending fraud repayment. Daniel sank into his chair, his voice breaking. Emma, please. I didn't know. She stood, interrupting him with the softest voice imaginable. You knew enough to betray me. Her words were calm, but her eyes, cold and final, told him there was no mercy left. Jacobs closed his briefcase. Your Honor, one last detail. The residence Mr. Miller and his family currently live in. We have records showing it was purchased entirely with my client's funds, which Mr. Miller fraudulently put in his own name. We are petitioning for immediate seizure of the property as partial repayment. Margaret gasped audibly, clutching her husband's arm. That can't be true. Jacob smiled faintly. It can, and it is. The judge nodded. Then the property is seized, effective immediately. The occupants will vacate within 48 hours. The courtroom erupted, reporters scribbling, cameras flashing, whispers rising like wildfire. Ava stood up, her eyes darting from Emma to Daniel, realization dawning. You told me she had nothing, she hissed. Daniel buried his face in his hands. Ava, wait. But she stepped away, her heels clicking sharply against the floor as she stormed out. Emma watched them silently, then turned to the judge and bowed her head. Thank you, Your Honor. The gavel fell again. Case closed. Final beat. Karma realized outside. Cameras flashed as Emma stepped down the courthouse steps. She didn't speak, didn't look back. The press shouted questions. Miss West, is it true you're heir to West Group? But she kept walking, her face serene under the morning sun. Behind her through the glass doors, Daniel sat slumped in defeat, staring at the papers that had destroyed him. Mr. Jacobs joined her at the car, opening the door. Justice served? Miss West. Emma paused before getting in, her voice soft. Justice began today. Revenge is still waiting. Because tomorrow, the world wouldn't just read about his downfall, they'd watch it unfold. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Daniel's trembling hands hovered over the desk, eyes fixed on the screen flashing with notifications. Account frozen. Contract terminated. Legal hold. He slammed his fist down. No, no, no! Papers scattered everywhere. His once polished office, once filled with clients, deals, and quiet arrogance, now felt like a collapsing cage. His assistant stood by the door, pale. Sir, West Group just called every one of our major vendors and partners. They told them to either drop us or lose the West Group account forever. We've been blacklisted. Everyone is pulling out. Daniel's voice cracked. They can't do that. The assistant swallowed hard. They can, sir. They own everything. The words hit harder than a punch. They own everything. Emma's name echoed in his head like thunder west. He had laughed at her silence. Now it was destroying him. By afternoon, his office phone was dead, his email locked, and his company logo being taken down from the glass wall. Daniel sat there, staring at his reflection in the dark computer screen. For the first time, he saw himself not as a victim, but as the fool who built his life on lies. Ava entered, sunglasses on, phone in hand. She didn't look angry, just bored. You could have told me, she said flatly. Daniel looked up, desperate. Told you what? That your money wasn't really your money. She scrolled through her phone, showing him a headline. West Group Harris wins divorce case, husband exposed for fraud and infidelity. Ava's smirk faded into disgust. You're broke, Daniel. And I don't do broke. She tossed her apartment key onto his desk and turned to leave. Ava, wait. She didn't. The door closed with a quiet final click. The spiral consequences arrive. The next week was a blur of humiliation. Banks refused his calls. His parents' home, the same one Emma's money had bought, was repossessed. The locks changed. Reporters camped outside their new tiny rental, shouting questions about fraud and infidelity. Even his own family turned on him. George refused to answer his calls. Margaret hid inside, ashamed of the headlines. Daniel walked through his empty, repossessed house one last time, past the eviction notices, whispering, I just wanted a family. But the silence mocked him back. One night, in the rain, he found himself outside the towering gates of West Group headquarters, the very place Emma had once been too humble to enter. He looked up at the massive building, its windows gleaming like eyes watching him. His clothes were soaked, his shoes ruined, but he didn't care. He pressed against the intercom, voice shaking. Please, I need to talk to her. Tell Emma I'm sorry. Tell her I'll do anything. Security guards approached, one of them holding out a hand. Sir, you need to leave. Daniel shook his head, rain pouring down his face like punishment. I just need 5 minutes. Please. The guard's expression didn't change. Mrs. West doesn't take unannounced visitors. The name made him freeze. Mrs. West, not Miller, not his wife. The same woman he had thrown out for being Barren. The same woman who had once cooked breakfast for his mother every morning. Now she was untouchable. He sank to his knees, hands pressed against the wet pavement, whispering her name through sobs. Emma, please. High above, on the top floor of the building, Emma sat behind tinted glass. Her hair was perfectly tied, her face unreadable. Through the window, she could see him kneeling in the rain like a broken man. The promise she'd whispered the night she left echoed in her mind. You'll be the ones crawling. Mr. Jacobs stood beside her, silent, holding a file. Do you want me to call security to remove him? Emma's eyes lingered on Daniel for a long moment. Then she turned away. No, she said softly. Let him stay. He's just learning what silence feels like. Outside, Daniel looked up as if sensing her presence, his voice lost in the storm. Please, Emma. I'm sorry. But there was no reply, only the steady hum of rain against glass. By dawn, the world would see her again, not as the woman he left, but as the woman who had risen beyond him. The sound of applause filled the grand ballroom. Camera flashes sparkled like falling stars as Emma West stood beneath the golden chandelier of the West Group Charity Gala, her first public appearance since the scandal that had shaken half the business world. Reporters leaned forward. Influential guests whispered her name, and somewhere in the crowd her father's old partners smiled with quiet pride. Emma adjusted the microphone, her eyes steady, her voice calm but commanding. "This foundation," she began, "isn't just about rebuilding lives. It's about remembering who we are when others try to make us forget." The room stilled. She looked around, her gaze sharp but warm. Some people mistake kindness for weakness. They think silence means surrender. But sometimes, silence is strategy, the space where strength grows quietly. A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. Cameras zoomed in as her hand rested over her heart, the same hand that once trembled while begging for love. "Forgiveness," she continued softly, "isn't letting go of justice. It's letting go of their power over you." The applause came again, louder this time. But Emma didn't smile for the cameras. She smiled for herself. Her mind drifted flashes of her journey, flickering like film reels. Daniel's betrayal, the courtroom gasp, the rain against the window. As he fell to his knees, she had been broken, yes, but she had also been reborn. Around her finger she wore no wedding ring, only a gold band engraved with the words, "West Legacy." It wasn't a symbol of love, it was a promise to herself to never shrink again. As the gala ended, the crowd rose to their feet. Emma stepped off the stage, light reflecting off the ring as she walked away, steady, serene, untouchable. Miles away, in a cheap motel room, Daniel sat alone in the dark, watching her speech on a flickering TV. His face was hollow, his eyes wet, his life in ruins. When Emma's final words echoed through the screen, he closed his eyes. "They threw me out for being barren. I gave birth to my own power instead." The screen faded to black, her face glowing beneath the spotlight, the woman who remembered who she was. And the world, now watching her rise, would never forget her name again. Unaware his wife secretly owns a multi-billion-dollar company. Ex-husband abandons wife and daughter for his dream mansion after their divorce. What happened next? He didn't just walk away. He slammed divorce papers on the kitchen table of a small suburban home, told his wife she was holding him back, and drove off to a glass mansion with another woman on his arm. That morning, Emma Collins steadied her hands as the papers shook in front of her. Her husband, Ryan, stood by the counter, his voice cold, his eyes full of a life he thought he deserved more than her. "I'm filing for divorce," he said. "I'm done living small." Behind him, their 8-year-old daughter, Lily, peeked from the hallway in her pajamas, clutching a stuffed bear, trying to understand why her father was leaving. He thought he was trading a boring wife for a dream mansion. He thought he was stepping into wealth, luxury, and a future built on marble floors and infinity pools. He thought Emma would be left with nothing but a broken home and a pile of bills. But what he never knew was this. The woman he just abandoned quietly owned something far bigger than his new house, an entire company worth billions, a digital empire that helped build the very financial system he was begging for loans from. On the same night he carried his suitcases into that mansion, Emma answered a calm phone call in her daughter's room and heard the words, "Ma'am, the board approved the merger. Your net worth just crossed $3.1 billion. This is not just a story about a man who left. It's about what happens when the person you underestimate most is the one holding the real power." Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it is like letting Emma's voice fade back into silence. When you click that button, you stand with every woman abandoned, every child left behind, and every quiet soul who chose to rise. Please, subscribe now, and in the comments, share where you're watching from. The sharp hiss of a boiling kettle broke the silence. Steam filled the small kitchen, wrapping around Emma Collins like a ghost of the life she used to dream about. She was 36, graceful but weary, the kind of woman whose eyes carried both patience and unspoken stories. Her movements were careful, habitually calm, yet beneath the surface, something heavy lingered. She poured the water into a chipped mug and stirred, the soft clink of the spoon echoing through the modest home she shared with her husband, Ryan Collins, 38, and their 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Outside, Sunlight touched the curtains. Inside, the air was thick with quiet tension. "Morning, sweetheart," she said softly as Ryan entered. Tie half done, phone already in hand. He didn't look up. "Morning. Did you pay the credit card yet?" "They called again yesterday." Emma smiled faintly, hiding the ache behind it. "I'll handle it today. Don't worry." He sighed. "You always say that. I'm just tired of scraping by, Em. I want more for us. For Lily." She wanted to say, "We already have more than you know," but she didn't. Instead, she placed his breakfast on the table, eggs, toast, and black coffee, and brushed a crumb from the corner of his plate with quiet care. Once Emma's life had looked very different. Years ago, before she met Ryan, she spent long nights in her garage, coding until her fingers went numb. She had built a software system that helped small businesses manage data, a simple idea that grew faster than she ever expected. She called it Core Link Solutions. Investors later called it genius. Within 7 years, it became the foundation of a massive digital infrastructure company valued in the billions. But Emma never wanted fame or attention. Her mentor, the late Professor Henry Dalton, had warned her, "Success invites both respect and resentment. Protect your peace." So she did. She sold the public face of her company to a trusted board and remained its silent majority owner, using her maiden name, Emma Hayes. No one, not even Ryan, knew that the woman quietly cooking breakfast was one of the wealthiest businesswomen in the country. Back then, when Ryan proposed, she had been tired of working 18-hour days. He made her laugh again. He told her she was enough even without her empire. She believed him. For a few years, their life felt perfect, until his laughter changed. Lily skipped into the kitchen, her dark curls bouncing. "Mommy, can I bring the pancakes you made to school? The kids love them." Emma's smile softened. "Of course, baby. You can take 2. Ryan scrolled through his phone. "2? We barely have enough for the week. We can't keep wasting food." Emma's hand froze for a moment. She turned back to the stove, her expression calm, but her eyes flickered with something unspoken. On the counter, her laptop pinged. A soft notification appeared. "Quarterly board meeting in 1 hour, priority attendance required." She glanced toward Ryan. "Honey, could you get Lily's backpack? It's in the living room." He groaned but got up, leaving the kitchen. Quickly, Emma opened the laptop. A digital dashboard appeared. Graphs, numbers, rising profits. The headline read, "CoreLink Solutions surpasses $3.1 billion valuation." For a moment, she allowed herself a quiet breath of pride. Then she heard his footsteps returning and snapped the laptop shut. Ryan re-entered, backpack in hand. "Who keeps emailing you so early?" "Just the school board," she lied smoothly. "Parent volunteer stuff." Lily, stuffing her lunchbox, tilted her head. "Mom, are you going to your other job today?" Emma froze. "What job, honey?" "The one where you talk on the computer at night," Lily said innocently. "I told Daddy, remember?" Ryan's eyes narrowed. "What's she talking about?" Emma smiled, masking her quickening. "Heartbeat. It's just freelance work. I help small companies online. Nothing serious." Ryan scoffed. "Maybe if you did something serious, we wouldn't be stuck in this house." Emma's hand lingered on the counter. There was a time his words would have cut her deeply. Now they just echoed against the wall, hollow and predictable. She wasn't angry, only sad that the man she once adored couldn't see the worth of what he already had. She turned to him, voice calm. "We'll be fine, Ryan, like always." He didn't respond. Lily tugged at Emma's sleeve. "Mom, will Dad come to my recital this time?" Emma hesitated, her eyes darting toward him. "Of course," she said softly, though doubt colored every word. Ryan's phone buzzed. A message appeared on the screen, half hidden but visible enough for the audience to catch. "She's waiting. Don't make her wait again." His thumb hovered over the reply button. He stood, muttering something about being late, and left his untouched breakfast on the table. Emma watched him go, her face unreadable. She turned back to her laptop once the door shut. The reflection of her own face appeared against a spreadsheet filled with numbers too large to comprehend. A quiet, almost sad smile touched her lips. "Maybe someday," she whispered, "he'll see what he walked past every morning." Then her phone buzzed another message from the same company chat she'd hidden earlier. Emergency board meeting legal notice inbound. Emma's eyes darkened, the warmth fading. Something bigger was coming. The cracks in her marriage are about to split open. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames. Emma Collins looked up from the kitchen table, startled. The sound cut through the quiet house like thunder after a calm day. The clock on the wall blinked 9:47 p.m., 3 hours past dinner. Ryan Collins stood by the door, his tie loose, his eyes cold. He smelled faintly of cologne, too, expensive for his usual taste. His phone was still in his hand, screen dimming as he slipped it into his pocket. "You're late," Emma said gently, standing. "I saved your dinner." "I ate," he said flatly, tossing his jacket onto the couch. "You didn't have to wait." Her eyes softened, the way they always did when he came home angry. "I wasn't waiting. I was working, and helping Lily with her homework." He scoffed, opening the fridge and staring into it, though he wasn't hungry. "Working? You mean that little freelance thing you do online?" Emma said nothing, only lowered her gaze. He shut the fridge and turned to face her. "Emma, when are you going to start doing something real? I can't keep living like this small, boring life. We're meant for more." Her voice remained calm, even. "We have more than enough. Lily's happy. We have a home, and you have a job you like. That's something to be thankful for." Ryan laughed without humor. "A job I like? Emma, I'm selling cars to people who can afford what we can't even dream of. I'm tired of being the guy who parks someone else's luxury while I drive a rusted one home." He paced the kitchen, his words sharp, restless. "Do you know what I saw today? A mansion. 6 bedrooms, glass walls, infinity pool, everything. That's the kind of life we should have. Not this tiny, suffocating space." Emma's hand tightened on the back of the chair. "A mansion doesn't build peace, Ryan. It builds distance." He turned, sneering. "You wouldn't understand. You've never wanted anything big." For a second, her calm cracked. She took a breath, forcing her voice steady. "You have no idea what I've wanted." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before she could answer, Lily's voice came softly from the hallway. "Mommy? Daddy? Are you fighting?" Emma turned instantly, kneeling to her daughter. "No, sweetheart. Daddy's just tired. Go to bed, okay?" Lily nodded sleepily and walked away, clutching her stuffed bear. The sight of her small figure retreating into the shadows made the silence heavier. Years ago, when Ryan lost his first job, it was Emma who held him together. She had been younger, full of faith in him. She sold her old laptop to pay their rent. When he doubted himself, she'd tell him, "You're not your job, Ryan. You're the man who'll build something better." Back then, he'd smile and pull her close. "You're too good for me." She'd laugh. "No. I'm with you because I see who you are when the world doesn't." But time had changed him. The kindness had turned to criticism, the charm into resentment. Now, he leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. "There's a real estate deal I heard about," he said. "A mansion on the market for half its value. If I could just find investors." Emma interrupted softly. "You think a mansion will fix? What's broken?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "It's not about fixing, it's about winning. I'm tired of feeling like I settled." Her eyes shifted ever so slightly, just enough for the audience to feel she's hiding something. Her face, calm but unreadable, gave nothing away. "Ryan," she said quietly, "what would you do if you suddenly had everything you wanted?" He looked up at her, confused. "What kind of question is that?" "Just curious," she said, smiling faintly. "Would you still be you?" He scoffed. "If I had money, I'd finally be free." The word hung in the air. Emma's heart sank, but her expression didn't change. She had heard something deeper in that word, a quiet confession. He didn't just want wealth, he wanted escape. After he left the room, Emma sat at the table again, staring at the half-empty wine glass beside her laptop. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the surface of the wine, half calm, half fractured. She thought about the last email she'd received that morning. CoreLink Global Board requests CEO confirmation for expansion approval. She delayed her response. She didn't want power, she wanted peace. But as she listened to Ryan's muffled voice in the next room, arguing quietly into his phone, she realized peace might no longer be an option. The sound of his voice grew clearer. Yes, I'll come tomorrow. Don't worry, he whispered. She doesn't suspect a thing. Emma froze. A second later, she heard a faint laugh from the other end of the line, a woman's voice, soft but sharp. She'll never make you rich, Ryan. But I can. Emma's hand trembled around her glass. Her eyes rose slowly to the family photo on the wall, the one where Ryan's arm was around her shoulder, smiling. The glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Her breathing steadied. Her expression hardened, though her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm. Be careful what you wish for, she whispered to the empty room. Then she reached for her laptop, reopening the Core Link board window. At the top corner, a message blinked. Upcoming merger approval, next 30 days. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, her face now unreadable. Something deep inside her had shifted. The next time Ryan talks about his dream mansion, Emma will let him have it, just not in the way he expects. The sound of papers slamming onto the table snapped the air in two. Emma flinched. The kitchen, once filled with the quiet rhythm of breakfast and laughter, now echoed with sharp words and heavier silence. Ryan stood by the counter, his face red, his voice louder than it had ever been. In his hand were divorce papers, fresh, crisp, and cold. I can't do this anymore, Emma, he said, his tone cutting through her like glass. I'm filing for divorce. I've made up my mind. Her breath caught. What are you talking about? He shoved the papers closer. You heard me. I'm done living small. I'm done waiting for miracles that never come. I need a real life. A bigger life. Emma's voice trembled, but her words were calm. Ryan, this isn't about the house or the money. This is about us, our family. Family, he barked, laughing bitterly. You mean this routine? This boring, dead-end existence? I'm suffocating here, Emma. I can't breathe anymore. Her hand gripped the edge of the table for balance. What about Lily? She's 8, Ryan. She needs her father. She'll be fine, he snapped. Kids adapt. She'll thank me when she's older, when she sees what real success looks like. Emma stared at him, eyes glistening. You're leaving us for a dream, Ryan. A dream that doesn't even exist. He turned away, unable or unwilling to meet her eyes. It exists. I've seen it. A boy stands outside a mansion gate, 14 years old, dirt on his jeans, envy in his eyes. Inside the gate, boys his age laugh. Around a pool, wearing designer clothes and smiles bought by their parents' money. One of them notices Ryan and sneers. Don't stare too long, kid. You'll fog up the glass. Ryan's fists clench. His heart burns with quiet humiliation. He whispers under his breath, one day, I'll live like that. No one will ever look down on me again. That same hunger still lived in his eyes, now older, sharper, more dangerous. Emma saw it and knew it was useless to argue, but she tried anyway. Ryan, I've supported you through everything, every failure, every job you lost. I stood by you when you had nothing. You think leaving is going to fill that emptiness inside you? He paused, just for a moment. Something flickered in his eyes, doubt, guilt, or maybe fear, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. I'm tired of being pitied, Emma, he said quietly. Tired of pretending this is enough. Her voice broke. So you'd rather destroy your family than face yourself? He looked at her, then cold, detached. I already made my choice. She stepped forward, her tone softening, desperate now. Ryan, please. For Lily. Don't do this. He didn't answer. He picked up the papers, signed them with a heavy hand, and left them on the table. The pen rolled off and hit the floor, the sound echoing like a gavel. Emma stood frozen as the door closed behind him. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful, it was suffocating. Lily came down the hallway in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Mommy, where's Daddy going? Emma crouched down, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. He's going on a trip, sweetheart. He just needs some time. Will he come back? Emma hesitated. I hope so. Lily hugged her tightly, and Emma held her until the little girl fell asleep in her arms. Then she sat in the dim light of the kitchen, staring at the divorce papers, her hands trembling but her face steady. She whispered, as if to herself, he's not just leaving me, he's leaving himself. Ryan's car pulls into a gleaming driveway, a mansion shining beneath the sunset. Beside him, Vanessa, a tall, confident woman in her early 30s, smiles and places her hand on his arm. This is it, she says softly. Your new beginning. Ryan looks up at the glass walls, the shimmering pool, the marble floors inside. His reflection stares back. He doesn't look happy, just hollow. Vanessa laughs and kisses him, whispering, You made the right choice. He forces a smile. Yeah, the right choice. Cut to Emma. She's in Lily's room, packing small boxes, tiny dresses, old toys, family photos. Each item placed gently, as if fragile memories might shatter if handled too fast. Lily's voice from behind. Mom, can Daddy see my new drawing? Emma swallows hard. He will, sweetheart. Someday. Her phone buzzes on the table. A number flashes across the screen, unknown, corporate. She answers softly. Hello? Ma'am, a professional voice says. The board approved the merger. Your net worth just crossed 3.1 billion. Emma goes still, her eyes close for a long moment. When she opens them, her calm is absolute, almost chilling. She glances at the divorce papers beside her. The ink from Ryan's signature has barely dried. She whispers, almost to herself, He left just in time. A faint smile touches her lips, not of joy, but of quiet power finally waking. She looks at the sleeping Lily, brushing her hair gently. From now on, she murmurs, we do it our way. The camera pans out their small home, fading into darkness, replaced by the faint glimmer of city lights far in the distance, where Emma's empire silently waits. Tomorrow the world will begin to see who Emma Collins really is, and Ryan will wish he never walked away. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing a wall of glass and light. Good morning, miss. Collins, a voice greeted. Emma stepped out, elegant, composed, and untouchable. The woman who once stood in a small kitchen begging her husband to stay was gone. In her place stood Emma Hayes, CEO of CoreLink Global, one of the largest private tech companies in the country. 2 years had passed since the divorce. The morning sun glinted off the skyline behind her, casting a halo of gold around her as she walked toward the boardroom. Her assistant, Maya Turner, a sharp 30-year-old with bright eyes and quick wit, trailed beside her with a tablet in hand. The Singapore deal is finalized, Maya said, keeping pace. The merger increased our valuation to 4.2 billion. Emma nodded slightly, calm and controlled. Good. Make sure our privacy contracts stay sealed. Of course. The doors opened to a long glass table surrounded by executives in suits. All eyes turned to her. Emma took her seat at the head of the table. Let's begin. Her voice was soft, but commanding. As the meeting continued, Emma's thoughts drifted briefly. The journey to this moment had not been easy. The first months after Ryan left were a storm of grief and silence. She had spent nights staring at the divorce papers, wondering how love could rot into greed. But she didn't break. Instead, she rebuilt slowly, deliberately. While Lily slept, Emma worked deep into the night, designing new strategies for CoreLink. She had turned her pain into power, her heartbreak into discipline. Now she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Her phone buzzed quietly. A message from Lily's school popped up. Parent-teacher meeting 3:30 p.m. She smiled faintly and typed back a reminder to herself. Be there. To the outside world, she was an empire in heels. To Lily, she was just mom. That balance, power, and love was her new strength. Maya cleared her throat gently. There's one more matter, Miss Collins. A small loan request came in from a real estate company, owned by a Ryan Collins. The name hung in the air like a ghost. Emma's pen paused over her notepad. She didn't look up, didn't blink. Amount requested? She asked softly. 2 million, Maya said. He's developing a luxury mansion project. Looks like he's struggling with capital flow. Emma finally looked up. Her expression didn't change. Approve it. Maya hesitated. Are you sure? Emma nodded once. Approve it under our subsidiary. No contact. No exceptions. Her tone was calm, almost gentle. But beneath that composure, something flickered, a cold flame of understanding. Maya jotted the note and moved on, unaware of the storm she'd just set in motion. That night, the glow of the city faded into the warm light of Emma's home. She sat on Lily's bed reading Charlotte's Web. Lily, now 10, was half asleep, head resting on her mother's shoulder. Mom, she murmured, do you ever get tired? Emma smiled, brushing Lily's hair aside. Sometimes. But then I remember why I started. What's that? You, Emma whispered. Lily smiled, eyes closing as she drifted to sleep. Emma sat for a moment longer, watching her daughter breathe. In this quiet, her walls fell away. The powerful CEO disappeared, leaving only a mother who had rebuilt her world from ashes. She kissed Lily's forehead and whispered, "You'll never have to chase what's already yours." Then, as she stood and walked into the hallway, her phone buzzed again, another email notification. The headline on the news alert froze her mid-step. Ryan Collins's luxury project faces bankruptcy, risk mansion deal in jeopardy. For a second, Emma said nothing. Then, she exhaled slowly, setting the phone down on the console table beside the family photo. Her eyes lingered on Ryan's face in the picture, smiling, confident, unaware. Her voice was quiet but steady. Karma doesn't knock. It walks in when had a bed. You least expect it. She turned off the light, the room falling into shadow. Outside, lightning flickered across the skyline, a distant storm forming. The storm isn't weather, it's consequence. And it's heading straight for Ryan Collins. The sound of breaking glass shattered the silence. Ryan Collins turned sharply, his pulse spiking. Across the living room, Vanessa, his girlfriend, stood trembling, the remains of a wine glass scattered at her feet. "I told you, Ryan," she cried, voice sharp with panic. "You promised this place was secure now. The bills keep piling up, the contractors want their money, and the investors are threatening to pull out." Ryan rubbed his temples, exhaustion etched into his face. The marble floors gleamed beneath their feet, the massive chandelier above them glimmering cold and expensive. What once felt like paradise now suffocated him. "I just need more time," he muttered. "The next deal will come through." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "You said that last month. You said that when we sold the car, when we maxed out the credit cards. You've got nothing left, Ryan, not even pride." He slammed his fist against the table. "I built this. I just need a little help." She laughed bitterly. "Built what? You borrowed everything? This house? This company? None of it's yours." The words cut deep because they were true. Ryan walked to the tall window, staring out at the empty pool below. The mansion that once felt like his victory now mocked him. His reflection stared back, a man who had traded love for marble, laughter for silence. 2 years ago, when he'd left Emma, he thought wealth would fill the emptiness she once occupied. But no matter how many parties he hosted or how much champagne he drank, peace never came. He remembered the day he invested every cent into his real estate startup, Collins Estates. He'd convinced himself it would make him untouchable. The funding came from a silent investor, an anonymous corporate branch that believed in his potential. Now that branch had gone quiet, payments delayed, emails unanswered, and every hour that passed, his debts grew heavier. "Ryan!" Vanessa snapped, pacing. "Sell your shares before it's too late." He turned to her. "And go back to nothing?" "No, I'll fix this. I always do." She threw her hands up. "You can't fix it, Ryan. You don't even own the land this mansion is built on." He froze, blinking. "What?" Vanessa crossed her arms. "You didn't read the fine print, did you? The title's under your investor's control until the project's complete. You don't own anything." The words hit like a blow. Ryan stumbled back into a chair, mind spinning. That evening, as the storm outside deepened, Ryan sat alone in his office, surrounded by unpaid invoices. He opened a new letter stamped in red, "Foreclosure notice." At the bottom, printed in small letters, was the logo of a financing company, CoreLink Financial Group. He frowned, muttering, "CoreLink." The name meant nothing to him, but to the audience, it screamed one truth, Emma. Ryan sighed heavily, tossing the letter aside. "Another loan shark," he murmured. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the reflection of his own face, aging, tired, regretful. From upstairs, Vanessa shouted, "Ryan, the electricity just got cut off." He buried his head in his hands. "Just a glitch. It's temporary." But deep down, he knew better. The dream was cracking, and this time, no one was going to save him. Downstairs, the wind pressed against the mansion's windows, howling like a warning. Ryan didn't see the next email arrive on his screen. Final audit meeting scheduled, CEO Emma Hayes to review all outstanding accounts. The storm had just begun. The heavy door clicked shut behind him. Ryan Collins stood in the middle of the sleek, glass-walled office, eyes darting around the room. The silence pressed against him. The air smelled of wealth-polished wood, new leather, and quiet power. Across the table sat a woman in a charcoal suit, calm, collected, and unreadable. Her nameplate read, M. Turner, Financial Executive, Maya Turner, Emma's trusted assistant. Ryan didn't know that. He only saw another corporate gatekeeper, another person between him and the salvation he desperately needed. "Mr. Collins," Maya began, her voice cool and professional. "Thank you for coming. We've reviewed your case. Unfortunately, your company's payment is 60 days overdue. This meeting is your final opportunity to negotiate terms." Ryan forced a smile, trying to sound confident. "I just need a little time. My next investor is lined up. Once the funds clear, everything will be paid in full." Maya's gaze didn't soften. "You've said that for 3 extensions already." He leaned forward. "Look, you don't understand. This mansion, the project, it's my legacy. I built it from scratch. I just need a chance." She folded her hands neatly on the desk. "Corelink Financial operates under strict policy, Mr. Collins. Unless payment is made by tomorrow, ownership of the property and all assets tied to the loan will transfer to our parent company." Ryan froze. "Transfer? To who?" "The owner prefers privacy," Maya replied, her tone unchanging. "But I can tell you this much, she's known for making quick decisions." For a moment, Ryan couldn't breathe. He stared at the glossy surface of the table, seeing not his reflection, but the version of himself he once believed in: successful, admired, unstoppable. Now, that man was gone. He had gambled everything: his savings, his dignity, his family. And now the walls he'd built to protect his pride were closing in. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Do you know what it's like to lose everything? To give your life to a dream and watch it burn?" Maya studied him carefully. "Sometimes," she said softly, "losing everything is the only way to learn what matters." The words struck him harder than she intended. He sat back, staring at her. For a strange, fleeting second, something about her tone reminded him of Emma, gentle but firm. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought. "Please," he said, his voice cracking now. "Whoever she is, this owner, this person, let me talk to her. I'll convince her I can turn things around." Maya's expression didn't change. "I'll pass along the request." Ryan gave a shaky laugh, running a hand through his hair. "I'd give anything to meet the person who owns this empire." He didn't notice the small smirk that flickered on Maya's face before she looked away. Maya stood, gathering her papers. "You'll receive our final notice by morning, Mr. Collins." He nodded numbly, staring after her as she left the room. The door closed behind her, and his world felt smaller than ever. Down the hall, Maya pulled out her phone and typed a message. Her reflection in the elevator mirrored the faintest hint of satisfaction. Text message. "He requested to meet you in person." She pressed send. Across the city, in a high-rise office bathed in gold light, Emma's phone buzzed. She read the message silently, her expression unreadable. Then, with calm precision, she typed back, "Schedule it." The faintest smile touched her lips as she set the phone down beside a framed photo of Lily. The game had just shifted, and this time, she held every card. Tomorrow, Ryan will finally meet the owner. But the woman behind the glass isn't the one he remembers. The doors to Corelink's top floor opened with a heavy metallic hum. Ryan Collins stepped inside, his heart hammering so loudly he could almost hear it echo through the sleek glass hallway. Everything around him gleamed: polished floors, minimalist design, quiet power. The kind of power he used to chase, but never truly touched. A woman at the front desk rose from her seat. "Mr. Collins, the CEO will see you now." He nodded stiffly, adjusting his tie, though his hands were trembling. "Right. Thank you." He followed her directions toward the corner office, massive, glass-walled, overlooking the entire city. As he approached, he saw a figure standing by the window, her back turned. The skyline stretched before her like a kingdom she ruled in silence. "Ma'am," the assistant said softly, "Mr. Collins is here." The woman didn't move for a moment. Then, quietly, she said, "Send him in." The door clicked shut behind him. The world seemed to hold its breath. "Miss Hayes?" Ryan began, his voice unsure. "Thank you for meeting me. I just wanted to explain." The woman turned slowly. and everything inside him stopped. It was Emma, his ex-wife, the woman he had walked away from. Ryan froze in place, unable to speak. His throat went dry, words dying, before they reached his lips. "Emma?" he whispered, as if saying her name might change the truth in front of him. Her face was calm, poised, unreadable. She looked nothing like the woman who once packed lunchboxes and wiped away tears in a small kitchen. Her hair was perfectly styled, her tailored suit a symbol of control. She gave a faint smile, not cruel, not kind, just knowing. "You wanted to meet the owner," she said quietly. Ryan's mouth fell open. "You? Me?" He stumbled a step forward. You're behind CoreLink?" "Yes." Her tone was calm, almost gentle. "The same company that funded your mansion, your business, your dream." He ran a trembling hand through his hair, eyes wide with disbelief. "I don't understand. You how? You were just..." Her gaze sharpened. "Just what, Ryan? A wife? A mother? Someone who didn't dream big enough for you?" He swallowed hard, guilt creeping up his spine. Emma took a few slow steps toward him, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. "I built CoreLink from nothing, years before you ever met me. I kept it hidden under my maiden name. I wanted peace, not power. I thought love was enough." Her voice softened, but her eyes did not. "I was wrong." The screen fills with flashes of Emma's past. A young Emma coding late at night in a cold garage, coffee cups stacked beside her. Her first investor meeting, trembling but determined. Her signing her first deal as Emma Hayes. Her working quietly beside a sleeping Lily after Ryan left. Each moment plays over the echo of Ryan's earlier words. "You've never wanted anything big." Ryan lowered his head, voice breaking. You're the reason my company's failing." Emma looked at him, eyes calm, unreadable. "No, Ryan," she said quietly. "You're the reason." The silence that followed was unbearable. The only sound was the faint hum of the city outside the fawn window. Ryan's voice cracked. "Was this your revenge?" Emma shook her head slowly. "No. Revenge takes effort. This was just business." He stared at her, tears gathering, but pride holding them back. "So that's it? You win?" Emma turned back to the window, her reflection overlapping his in the glass, two versions of the same past, but only one had survived it. "I didn't need to win," she said softly. "I just needed peace." A soft knock interrupted the silence. Maya entered, holding a document. "Ma'am," she said, setting it on the table. "The transfer is complete. Collins Estates now belongs entirely to CoreLink." Ryan's face went pale. No, this can't be happening." Emma didn't look at him. "It already has." He took a shaky step backward, the weight of his choices finally crushing him. As he left the office, the door closing behind him, Emma stood motionless, staring out over the city. Her eyes softened only once when her phone buzzed. A message from Lily's school. "Parent Appreciation Day next week. RSVP?" Emma typed back, "I'll be there." Her expression gentled, but her voice, when she finally whispered to herself, carried quiet warning. "Some storms don't destroy," she said. "They reveal who was built to stand." The world will soon learn of Emma's rise, and Ryan's public fall is only beginning. The flash of cameras lit up the room like lightning. Journalists filled the hall, microphones raised, flashes bursting in every direction. At the front of the sleek glass stage stood Emma Hayes, poised and graceful beneath the bright lights. Her calmness was disarming. Her presence commanded the room. Behind her, the screen displayed the words in bold silver letters. CoreLink Global announces landmark acquisition. The audience buzzed with anticipation. This was no ordinary business deal. Rumors had already spread that Emma's next move would shake the real estate market to its core. The moderator stepped aside and gestured to her. "Ladies and gentlemen, the woman redefining innovation, Miss Emma Hayes." Applause filled the room. Emma stepped up to the microphone, her voice steady and clear. "Good morning," she began. "For years, CoreLink Global has focused on technology that connects and empowers people. But connection isn't just about data. It's about community homes, families, futures." She paused. The audience leaned in. "That's why today," she continued, I'm proud to announce our acquisition of Collins Estates, a struggling real estate development project. Effective immediately, it will be restructured and renamed Lily Estates, a sustainable housing initiative named after my daughter. The cameras erupted in flashes. The crowd murmured, realizing what had just happened. Emma's face remained calm, though her heart was steady fire. This was not revenge, it was correction. 2 years ago, Ryan had abandoned her and their daughter for that same dream, the mansion, the luxury, the illusion of success. Now she owned the very empire that had broken him. But she didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply looked out at the cameras and spoke softly. Lily Estates will represent renewal proof that even from the ashes of failure, something good can grow. It's never about how high you climb, but what you build that lasts. The applause returned, thunderous and emotional. Behind her, the large digital screen shifted to show concept art, beautiful green neighborhoods, solar rooftops, community parks. Emma stepped back, clasping her hands together. Her eyes, however, were distant. Somewhere deep inside, she remembered the woman she once was, the wife who cooked breakfast in a quiet kitchen, who believed love could cure ambition. That woman was gone, but her kindness remained. The scene switched instantly, a sharp contrast. Ryan Collins sat alone on his couch, staring at the TV. The same press conference played on screen. The words Lily Estates glowed behind Emma as she spoke. His eyes widened, his face drained of color. She bought it? He whispered, voice breaking. She owns it all? Beside him, Vanessa stood frozen. For weeks she'd been restless, watching the walls of wealth crumble around them. Now the truth was undeniable. She was the investor, she said coldly. All this time? It was her. Ryan buried his face in his hands. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. Vanessa laughed bitterly. Of course you didn't. You never looked past your own reflection. He lifted his head, eyes red. Vanessa, please. But she was already walking toward the door, heels clicking against the marble floor. At the threshold, she turned back, slipped the diamond ring he had given her from her finger, and dropped it to the floor with a sharp clang. Enjoy your empire of dust, she said, and left without another word. The echo of the door slamming was deafening. Ryan sat motionless. The TV continued to play. Emma's calm face filled the screen. She was smiling now, gentle, composed, glowing under the lights as the words, empowering new beginnings, appeared beneath her. Ryan's hands clenched into fists. His jaw trembled. His reflection in the black TV screen looked like a ghost of the man he once was. For the first time, he understood the weight of everything he'd lost, not just the house, not the money, but the woman who built the world he destroyed. The camera slowly panned in on the television as Emma concluded, Lily Estates will honor integrity, hope, and second chances. Because every ending deserves a purpose. Her eyes flickered toward the camera, as if she knew who was watching. Ryan's breathing quickened. His heart pounded in his chest. He whispered, She knew I'd be watching. The television light flickered once, illuminating the papers on the table beside him, legal documents marked. Final repossession. Tomorrow his name will make headlines not for success but for scandal, and Emma's quiet victory will echo louder than any revenge could. The sound of wind howled through the hollow mansion. Ryan Collins sat on the cold marble floor, surrounded by boxes in silence. The luxury furniture was gone, repossessed. The echo of his footsteps was all that remained of the empire he had tried to build. In front of him lay a single photo album, its leather cover worn from years of neglect. His trembling hands opened it. The first photo showed him and Emma, smiling in front of their old suburban house. She wore an apron, flower on her cheek, her hand on his shoulder. Beside her, Lily, just 4 years old, then grinned with missing teeth. Ryan's eyes burned. He turned the page. Photo after photo, Emma at her laptop late at night, Lily asleep beside her. Emma carrying groceries in the rain. Emma bandaging the cut on his hand after one of his failed construction attempts. He had called her unambitious then, but now, staring at her tired yet determined smile, he realized the truth. She wasn't unambitious. She was unstoppable. He was just too blind to see it. Ryan leaned back against the empty wall, clutching the photo to his chest. His mind replayed their memories like fading echoes. Her laughter in the kitchen, her soft voice telling him, We'll be fine, Ryan. We always are. He had traded all of it for glass and marble, for pride and vanity. A flashback filled his mind, Emma, handing him a lunch bag before work, whispering, "Don't skip meals today." He had scoffed back then. "You worry too much." Now he'd give anything to hear her say those words again. A single tear slid down his cheek, landing on the photo. He wiped it quickly, ashamed of the man he'd become. Ryan reached for his phone, his thumb hovering over her name. "Emma." He hesitated, then pressed call. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, voicemail. Her voice came through steady, calm, familiar. "Ryan, I got your message. For Lily's sake, I forgive you. But for mine, I can't forget." The line went dead. Ryan stared at the phone, breath shaking, heart breaking. The silence returned louder than ever. Outside, the for sale sign swayed in the wind, creaking softly like a final goodbye. Tomorrow he will face the world one last time and learn what true humility feels like. The camera opened on a quiet park, bathed in golden sunlight. Children's laughter floated through the air. Ducks glided peacefully across a small lake, ripples glimmering under the soft orange glow of evening. Emma Hayes sat on a wooden bench, her daughter Lily beside her. A paper bag of breadcrumbs rested in Lily's lap. Every few seconds, Lily tossed a handful into the water, giggling as the ducks scrambled for each crumb. Emma smiled a real, unguarded smile. For the first time in years, her shoulders weren't heavy with secrets or pain. The storm was finally over. "Mom," Lily said, eyes sparkling, "when I grow up, can I have my own company too?" Emma looked at her daughter lovingly. "You can build anything you dream of, sweetheart. Just remember, build it with love, not pride." Lily nodded, swinging her legs happily. Emma leaned back, watching the sky change colors. The golden hour wrapped the world in warmth, and she thought about how far she'd come. She remembered the mornings she woke before dawn to pack lunches, the nights she coded quietly in her garage, the heartbreak of watching Ryan walk out the door. She had once believed love meant sacrifice. Now she knew love also meant strength, choosing peace over revenge, dignity over pain. In the distance, a gentle breeze carried the faint sound of a news anchor's voice from a passing radio. Former businessman Ryan Collins files for bankruptcy following corporate acquisition by CoreLink Global, now known as Collins Corp., led by CEO Emma Hayes. Emma closed her eyes, breathing in deeply. She didn't feel triumph, just closure. The world had witnessed her success, but this quiet moment with Lily was her real victory. As they stood to leave, Lily tugged her mother's hand. "Mom, look!" Across the street, a brand new billboard gleamed in the sunlight. On it, CoreLink's new logo had been revealed, its name changed to Collins Corp. Below it, in bold golden letters, the new slogan read, "Built from love, not greed." Emma gazed up at it, her reflection shimmering in the glass. Lily slipped her small hand into hers. "Is that for us, Mom?" Emma smiled softly. "It's for everyone who forgot where real wealth begins." They walked away hand in hand, their shadows stretching long under the fading sun. A calm voiceover closed the scene, Emma's inner thought echoing softly. "He thought wealth was built in mansions. I learned it's built in hearts." Thank you for watching. Emma's story to the end. If her journey from abandonment to quiet power touched you, please like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their worth. Drop a comment below. I choose love over greed, so I know you were here till the end.